So in today's video, I want to show you how I set up my DJ PA systems, gain controls, EQs, all that kind of fun stuff. Now, I just want to say right off the bat, I'm not an audiophile. I'm not an audio engineer. I'm just a dumb DJ who wants things to sound relatively good at my events. And these settings seem to work pretty well for me. I'm going to cover mixing board settings, top cabinet, and subwoofer settings. And with the specific stuff I'm using, they're just examples. They could very well work for what you have as well. Same principles should apply. So let's get started. All right, let's start with the top cabinet speakers. Now, this could very well be a compact array, but in this case, it's a two-way top cabinet, and it's one of the newer ones. On the older ones, there was a volume knob, and this was represented by 0 through 10. So all the way down would be 0, all the way up would be 10. When that was the case, I used to crank these all the way up to 10. And sometimes there was a clip light. As long as that light was flashing, I was okay. If that light was steady on, I had a problem and I'd have to back it off. But I never had that problem with the mixer settings that I used, and I'll show you that in a minute. Now, on these newer speakers, this is not the case. The volume is represented very different. 0 dB is top dead center, noon. And then if you come down a little bit, you're minus dB. If you go up a little bit, you're plus dB. So when this is the case, when your speakers are like this with 0 dB at the top, leave them there. Don't touch them. So let's go ahead and turn this one on, and we'll see the DSP menu is going to come on. Let me show you a couple things there. Now, the volume we just looked at was the line volume. This is the master volume on the speaker because this is kind of like a little mixing board essentially. See, it's at 0 dB, leave it there. You can go plus, you can go minus, but 0 dB is where you want this. Now, if I'm in a situation where I need a little more juice, I have been known to crank this up to plus 2 dB, maybe plus 3. I wouldn't run it like that all the time, but if I need a little more juice in a bigger room, I've done that. 2 is good. I don't like to go 3 if I don't have to, but most of the time I should be running at 0 dB on this speaker with my particular mixer settings. And if that's not enough for the room, I really need more sound reinforcement, bigger speakers. So if we jump into the DSP menu, there's a couple things I like to do on this particular speaker, this Electro Voice one. Where it says mode, there are a couple different options. There's the music, there's live, there's speech, club. I like to run this at live. I think that's the best setting. It sounds the best to me. Do what you want. Location, tripod, that's what it's on right now. That's probably fine. And sub, this is the crossover. We talked about this in the last video a little bit. Just to review, if you're sending a full range signal to this speaker, full spectrum, it's going to try to produce every sound in that spectrum, including your sub bass. This is not a subwoofer, so I don't like to do that. So what I like to do is give it a 100 hertz crossover. That way, all sounds 100 hertz and above go to the speaker. That's your punchy mid bass, your mid highs, and your highs. That's cool. That's what I like it to do. That's just my personal preference on that. Sometimes I run a subwoofer, and when I do, there's a very specific volume setting that I use. It works very well with my mixer settings. So we're at 0 dB. That would be like top dead center. If this was a 0 through 10 volume control, it would be at 5. But, you know, if it was even a volume control without this LED menu, it would still be top dead center, 0 dB. So a lot of people want to crank their subs up. I don't think that's a good idea. I think the best idea is to not leave it at 0 dB, but to bring it down. In fact, I go down sometimes to minus 4 dB. The reason I do that is with my mixer settings, I'm not going to overload the subwoofer. The bass that comes out of here is going to be clean. So if you're realizing some distortion on your subwoofer, you might want to bring that volume down a bit. Now let's just jump into the DSP menu over here. Mode music, that's fine. And then if we come down here to low pass, it's set by default at 100 hertz. And that's fine. That means everything that is 100 hertz and below will go to the subwoofer. The mixing board settings that I use are pretty straightforward. You'll notice that all the EQs are at noon. And what I want to do is take my master volume and bring it up to the 3 o'clock position, or 8 on the dial. So it's right there, okay? Now the next thing I do is play track. And I look at my pre-fade level lights or pre-fade listen. I've heard them called both things. I call them pre-fade level. Notice it's going into the red. That's way too hot. I'm going to bring the trim down, or the gain down, until the loudest point that we hit is 0 dB. Now we're going to lower the song. I'm going to get back into where the beats are here. So the highest point I want that to hit is 0 dB, which is represented as the last green light on this pre-fade listen. Now once in a while it jumps into plus 2 dB, which is the first amber light. On some mixing boards, 0 dB is represented as the first amber light, but on this one it's the last green. Now, if I start to play with my line fader, this is my volume that I'm going to use for my tracks, okay? It's not going to be this, it's not going to be this, it's going to be this. If I go up to 8, notice I'm hitting 0 dB on my master. That's because the loudest signal I want to send to my speaker is 0 dB. I don't want to go higher than that. If it spikes up to plus 2 once in a while, not the end of the world, but the objective is 0 dB output of the mixing board, and that's how I achieve it. Now, personal preference I have is sometimes I'll bring the mid down a little bit. I just like how it sounds. You don't have to do that, but that's what I do. Sometimes I'll run an additional mixing board for extra microphones or even better microphone inputs. I know a lot of people do that, and some people will run a signal, I don't know, out of their main source into their DJ mixer or controller. Then they'll run the mains into the microphone auxiliary mixer and then that out to the speakers. I do not do it that way. I don't recommend you do it that way. What I recommend you do is run this microphone mixer as an auxiliary to your DJ controller or mixing board. So what you would do is run a signal out of this little mixer into an auxiliary of your board. That way you can control the volume right on your board. You don't have to have multiple volumes you got to worry about too much. You can set this one and forget it, and then you can use your main mixer to control the volume. Not only that, but most of the time, if you're using a premium mixing board like Pioneer, Denon, Rain, Roland, whatever you have, you're going to end up with a better output signal than you would on most any other type of little outboard mixer that you pick up for microphones. So there you have it. Again, this is not gospel. These are just my settings that I feel like work pretty well. And hopefully it helps somebody out there. If you've got a different way to do it, let us know in the comments section. We'll see you next time. Thanks for watching. Practice and enjoy.